Hello friends, Johnny Mayer with you again. Today I'll tell you about my time at kindergarten. It was really difficult. I don't remember how they brought me to kindergarten. I want to tell you the story of how I went to kindergarten. When I was very little, I didn't quite understand who I was, where I was, and what my purpose in this life was. I don't even remember what day or date my parents brought me to kindergarten. But it was a nursery group, and the teachers took me there. I ended up in some room where there were a lot of different children. There was a large hall with wooden chairs, small tables, a few pots, lots of toys, wooden horses, wooden cars, and elephants. I remember I had my favorite toy with me, a Christmas tree ornament in the shape of an owl. I loved it very much. I don't know why. It was very bright, shiny, and shimmered with all sorts of colors and sparkles. Apparently they gave it to me for New Year's, and it was my first gift from my parents, and I really appreciated this gift. Well, at one point, I was sitting on the floor playing with this toy owl. Suddenly, some little rascal jumped up to me, pushed me, I fell on the floor, and my toy owl smashed into tiny pieces. And of course I started crying. I cried for a long time until the teacher took me away and calmed me down. Then at some point, some little rascal, I don't really remember him either, he bit me on the back. When I turned away to do some activity, to play with some toys, he bit me with all his might. He bit me with all his might on my back. I also screamed really loudly and fell. And then the teachers ran up and pulled us apart and started shaking us, and they carried us away and put us on the potty.
You said you were done.
You've done your best.
Said your best days were gone. They counted you out, but they counted wrong.
When the fire breaks out, and the smoke gets in your eyes, you can
turn and run, or you can come alive. You race to the top, you rise to the core. When the road closes in, you ain't gonna fall. That
Utso, I had your haru ado are dita.
No idea how cruel the world we live in was. The teachers weren't very kind to the children. They practically drove them crazy with their screaming and crying. There were a lot of children, and there were about 5 teachers. Well, there was also a nanny and a cook. And they weren't particularly kind to the children. Sometimes they'd slap us. Sometimes they'd just spank us on the bottom to stop us from crying. And then they'd put us on the potty. Sometimes when someone got into trouble for cracking, I remember one case, it was a little girl. She wasn't thinking straight. Well, she was very little. And in revenge for being slapped, she crawled into a small house and pooped all over the teachers. Well, immediately there was some kind of stench. And the whole kindergarten grounds began to smell foul. Well, of course, all the teachers came running. They were furious. They didn't know where the smell was coming from. They started looking, and eventually they discovered this girl peeking out of this little house, and she was completely covered in her own feces. And they, of course, immediately grabbed her, beat her up, and carried her to the sink and started washing her there. And at that moment, people can be very cruel, especially when their job is so difficult and someone is constantly crying. And of course, the teachers didn't really like the children, but they had to do this job because everyone makes money as best they can. At that time, I realized that life is such a hard thing. It's not a bed of roses, and you have to do things in life that you don't want to. You don't want to and so at some point I went to, they fed us some kind of soup, made of sauerkraut, and one day I ate my fill of this soup, and my stomach churned, and I, a little boy, went to the toilet and crawled. And at that moment, there was that crazy kid again, the one who always harmed me, the one who had bitten me on the back before. Now he was crawling around and noticed me again, and apparently our planets weren't aligned. Or for some reason, he hated me. And when I started to go into the toilet through the door, he pushed the door with all his might and pinched my hand. Of course, I screamed, and myself. The teachers came running, carried us away, and kicked us. But that day, I remembered that when I get some kind of injury, my legs or arms, after the wound heals, seem to get stronger. I remember after an injury, when an injured arm or leg heals, Thick skin forms over the scar. You develop thick skin, and at that moment I realized that what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. I later applied this to my training. When we injure our muscles during training, they subsequently heal and only become stronger. Stronger. And when I was chopping wood, and later chopping logs with an axe, my hands would also get bruised by the axe, but they only grew stronger. And then I realized that during a hard workout, when we create micro trauma later, when the muscles recover, they become stronger, and therefore the muscles grow. And therefore the muscles grow. And so I developed an exercise for myself. When we pump our forearms, if we hit them very hard with a hammer, at some point we injure our hands. But this is only a plus in our training, because even if we get some bruises and abrasions on our hands, they heal and very strong tissue forms in their place. And on top of this, when we do exercises on the wrist, we bend our arms, bending and straightening our arms. They become stronger, but if you smash them with a hammer, they will take a week to heal. But then the tissue only gets stronger and stronger. As the great Nietzsche said, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, With you, Johnny Major, and today I indulge in memories of my childhood, how I learned about the world, how I learned about the world of strength, and how I accepted beatings from teachers and my enemies in kindergarten, and how I understood that our beatings, our sores, they heal. And then we only become stronger.
Oh, you can come alive. You race to the top, you rise to the core. When the road's closing in, you ain't gonna fall. All that a man can be, rising to the moment, never backing down.
And at some point I realized that our beatings, the sores we get when we are beaten by enemies, our sores, they heal and only get worse. The skin gets stronger, and bruised legs and arms also gain strength. So I'll show you an exercise you can use in your training for recovery to gain more strength in your arms. When you train your wrist,
Fight to win, stand your ground. You're all that a man can be. All that a man can be.
No time for backsliding.
Regret is just a chain. Leave the
Going
ghost
behind.
behind. Face the
Fire again.
When the timber is burning,
Johnny was with you. Subscribe to the channel. Visit my boosty and train. Do bodybuilding.